school, you learn how to look at things differently. Once you're done with law school, you give that lawyer answer. Well, it depends. I need more information.
Mm-hmm. So, welcome to the podcast, Stephanie Clark.
Thank you, Kyla.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm really excited too. I was running out earlier, and so that's why I'm dressed. I would have put on my Southern sweatshirt because we are both graduates of Southern University Law Center in Baton Rouge. Yay.
2015.
Absolutely. So if you guys are watching on YouTube and you're like, that person looks familiar, this is Gerler. That was what everyone called her because we went by our last names when we were in law school. But she is now Stephanie Clark. So we are addressing her as Stephanie Clark. Okay. So catch me up. You are in Florida now. When we met, we were both in Louisiana. What's been going on in your practice of law?
Oh, so many things. Well, I left Louisiana because I could not get a decent paying job, which, you know, that area. Yeah. So I moved to Florida because free childcare. Because my parents lived here, and that was what they initially got me with. They're like, you know what? They're like showing me houses here. Buy this house. Like, well, I can afford the bathroom there. Maybe that's it. Yeah. And I was like, well, we got free childcare here. And I'm like, sold.
Yeah.
So I moved out here. I actually started working at a criminal defense firm as a paralegal. I was there for 5 years as a paralegal because I took the bar multiple times here in Florida and failed spectacularly. Well, I mean, probably not spectacularly. In my mind, it was spectacular because it was fail.
Yeah.
And then, so I left that firm and actually went to another criminal defense firm where all they did was criminal defense. Because at my other firm, I was the catch-all. I was criminal defense. I was wills, trust, estates. I was every now and then family law. I was like, oh, this is random law. Stephanie can do it. And I was like,
you probably learned a lot. Yeah.
I did. I learned a lot about Florida law. But I didn't, and we skirted that line on practicing law without a license, because I kept telling people, I'm like, I can tell you everything except your plea agreement.
Right.
Because that's where we drew the line. So then I went to a different firm where it was a little bit more strict, but that was ultimately not for me. But at that firm, I did sit for the Alabama bar and passed Alabama because it was the UBE, which, shout out to anybody taking the bar exam, that's thinking about a bar exam. The UBE is amazing because it actually puts real world scenarios in there, not just like the MPRE or the MBE questions that you see. You actually get writing like, hey, do this memo. And you're like, oh, I can do that. I've done that so many times.
Right.
So I took the UBE and I finally got my bar pass in 2020. So I have 5 years after law school, I got it, but I got it. And thousands of dollars later, you know, after all those bar things. And from there, I kind of bounced around a little bit because I wasn't entirely sure where I wanted to go. I actually tried to do that hang my own shingle thing. But in Alabama, I didn't know anybody, no connections, and I was not moving up there. Not doing it. So I didn't really go too far there. I had 1 or 2 clients here and there, but I worked for the SBA, which was the Small Business Administration. I did that for a little while. That was good money, long hours, 6 days a week, mandatory 10-hour days, 6 days a week. Okay. I got very tired very quickly. Then I worked for a family law firm for a little while in Alabama as a family law attorney. 10 out of 10, don't recommend. Yeah.
I've heard never mess with people's family or their money, and family law impacts both. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the ones, like family law and criminal law, they say are the quickest ones that are going to go to the bar for a complaint. So, and that's when I found that if I was going to do family law, I was going to do uncontested because that's, look, fill out these forms, and I get to submit it. But then I started, then I was a contract attorney for a little while, like just doing, I did projects here and there for different companies and would just doc review, things like that. And now I'm a veterans disability attorney, and I have been doing this for 9 months now, 10 months.
Yeah.
And
so do you like it?
Good. I do like it. It is nice. Working for the veteran, trying to get them the benefits they are owed. I have a few veterans on my list right now that I'm like, why are you really owed this though?
Yeah.
But the majority of them are my Vietnam veterans, and I'm like, this should not have taken this long. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
So the firm I work for is based out of Maine, actually.
Okay. So you're virtual.
I am virtual. This is my office.
Okay.
most people just see a blur behind me when they see me on camera, because it's like the judges I talk to, because we do the hearings. It's me with a blur behind me because generally there's dog toys on the floor and my bookshelf is overflowing.
It has to be. You're a lawyer. I mean, that's what we do. Yeah. Overflowing bookshelves. Yeah.
That's one of like 4 bookshelves. I got that one, this one over here, another one over here. And I'm like, I have a stack on top, and I'm like, I need to read those.
Yeah. See, this is the behind the scenes that people don't get. I love it.
Yeah, just so many things. But yeah, it's good. I really like fighting. I had one recently. It's kind of a fun little anecdote to have. I about flew myself out to California because I do not abide by people harming or causing harm to elderly or children or pets, really. But one of my veterans has been taken advantage of by someone who is supposed to be a caregiver to him, and has stolen all his paperwork and actually hired a whole other firm.
Wow.
For his claims. So myself and the other attorney that are on the case were like, let's fix this. So which I really like, because in veterans law, we're like, all of us are here for the veteran. We're not like, it is a paycheck, yes, but it's not like, oh well, I'm going to fight you for this money. Like we both said that if the other one takes it, like whoever he decides to keep, because when we spoke to him last time, he thought we were both the same firm.
Wow.
2 different firms.
Fighting for 2 very different things too.
Yeah, well, we're actually fighting for the same thing, but we have 2 different approaches. Like my firm, we go to hearings. Other firms, they just write the memo because you have that option. But we like to get in front of the judge because that way the judge sees us, they take their notes, and then they can put their opinion in and say, oh, yeah, we actually agree with this. Whereas if it's just paperwork, it just goes to the same people that have already denied it most of the time. So it's good, though.
So this is fascinating. My dad was a Vietnam vet, and he passed in 2021. And I mean, when you're a vet, you get so many perks. Like we were able to have his headstone paid for because he was a veteran, like all of this stuff, which was great. But it sounds like this is a national law practice, right? From Maine to California, you cover veterans.
Absolutely. We are, so the main office is in Maine. We have we're actually growing a lot. It's not exponentially, but it's growing. We've added a handful of new attorneys, handful of new case managers. Our farthest attorney west is in Arizona. Okay. And we have someone in Chicago, Ohio, someone from your neck of the woods. And then a couple of us down here in Florida. We have now 3 or 4 in Alabama, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
So, but we take them all over the United States because it is federal law, so we don't have to be in that state.
Yeah, very cool. So, Stephanie, I have to ask, because you mentioned that you took the bar exam a couple times while you were a paralegal.
Yes.
I'm not going to ask the obvious question yet. But what I want to know is, how were you able to stay around the law while you were studying for the bar? Like, being a paralegal and being around the law during the day while studying sounds crazy to me. Like, didn't you want some kind of separation, or was it a benefit?
It was, in my mind, it was a benefit because I was learning the ins and outs of the actual law, not the, oh, well, John Smith does this, you know, because that's not real. And that's in my opinion, that's the problem with a lot of the bar exams, is it's not real life. It doesn't show you how you're going to be as an attorney. But it also could have hindered me because I spent, 8 in the morning until 5 at night at the office, and then came home to children and pets and other life, trying to study and then get up and do the whole thing again.
Yeah. Okay. So now the obvious question, which is, why did you keep taking the bar exam? Like, what was the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow where you were like, I'm going to keep fighting for this. I know I can do it.
Part of it was stubbornness. I am not going to let this thing beat me.
You can't say that.
It is. I was like, I'm going to win. Like, I know Um, but another one was I'm in my mind, being the attorney was the higher paying job. Like the paralegal spots, they were good. Like where I'm at, the paralegal pay was topping out at $17 an hour.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's just not. And even the attorney spots that I've seen sometimes, like, oh, we'll pay you $35,000, and I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm very, 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 like, in my mind, I'm like, I need, you have this degree, you have the advanced degree, and then you have the bar results. That should at least give you a handful of steps on the pay scale.
Yeah.
Like, I base it on the GS pay scale, which I'm not in, but that is in my mind, that is what most people should base their pay scales on. But they don't. They don't listen to me, because I'm just me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about some of your experiences with different offices.
Sure.
How did you get on with the Small Business Association? Like, where did that come from?
I have my eyes on USA Jobs and Indeed. It's just, it comes up. I still am on there from back in the day. I had been trying to get a federal job since my undergrad years.
Wow.
And I would put in for different random ones, and finally I got the family law job, and I'd been there for 2 weeks, and the SBA called me. And they said, hey, by the way, we're going to offer you this job. And I was like, yes. Because I went from having an hour and a half commute one way to working remote and getting paid more, plus benefits.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, that is, I like that. But they were then, because it was right after COVID, or right during COVID, when the PPP loans and the other small business loans were coming through. So they needed attorneys to look at the documentation. So they were like, here, we're going to mass hire. It was a temporary gig. But they're like, well, the temporary stuff a lot of times lasts for a year and a half, 2 years here. And I'm like, I'm not doing 10-hour days, 6 days a week for 2 years, but I like the paycheck.
Okay. All right. So how do you like virtual work? Will you ever go back?
So I like virtual work. I really do like it because it does let me be home with the dogs, as you hear in the background, and my children when they get home, or if I need to run out and do something during the day. But I do miss meeting people. I do miss being in the office. And to be frank, I have gained entirely too much weight being home because I'm like, oh, the fridge is right there. Oh, snacks. But I got off my exercise routine because when I would get up, go to work, come home, exercise, or exercise, go to work, come home. Now I'm like, I get up and roll into the office, and then I go out and we do things. And then sometimes I do hate it because I can come back in the office at 7 o'clock at night and be like, I need to finish this memo that's going out tomorrow. Because I'm that person. I'm like, oh, I don't want to leave it. I need to get it out today.
No, just before we jumped on this call, I was talking to someone. I was like, yeah, I'll email you Monday. But I definitely just wrote the email and just scheduled it for Monday. And I was like, Kyla, relax. But that's just how we are. I think that's a part of the legal training. They just train us to be like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of my coworkers, she and I were talking, because I actually got to meet a handful of my coworkers this last week because we had what was called the NOVA conference, which is National Organization for Veterans Affairs. So we went in person, and I got to meet like 9 of my coworkers. I was like, so in April, I went to a NOVA conference. It's called National Organization for Veterans Affairs. It was in person in Orlando, and I actually got to meet 9 of my coworkers in person. I had never met them. I had only seen their faces on Zoom. So it was nice meeting them in person, and that was a good little team building, I guess. So we had a good time.
So did you turn to the Veterans Affairs job because you were still trying to stay within working with the federal government? Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, so I turned to the Veterans Affairs because it was still a remote position. Mm-hmm. It was working within the federal system, but it wasn't a GS position at the government. It's working for the veterans, kind of against the government, I guess. But it's not really against because there's no adversarial proceedings. It's all contained. Like the judges are even there, and I even have a couple of them say, well, I'm not like Judge Judy. I'm not going to cross-examine you. I'm here just to clarify. And I love those judges. Because I say the same thing. I'm like, but I wanted something that I was still able to, get paid well, because that is the end goal for anybody, at least in my opinion, and be what am I looking for? I wanted to be beneficial to somebody. I wanted to be helpful while also, making money. And being able to work from home was still ideal because a lot of the other jobs I was finding were I would have to probably get an apartment away from my house to work in Alabama, because they're all up in Birmingham and Montgomery.
Yeah.
And that's, Montgomery's 2.5 hours away. Birmingham is like 6. Okay.
So a couple times you mentioned Alabama. You said that you did pass the bar in Alabama, but you're living in Florida and you practice a national or nationwide type of law. So did you get to waive into the Florida bar, or does it not matter as long as you're licensed in Alabama?
So Florida does not accept waiver in any way, shape, or form. They're one of the few states that do not accept it. You have to take the bar and pass it to practice here, point blank. Even if you've been practicing for 50 years, you would still have to take the bar to practice here. For my purposes, then what Florida has actually come out and said with one of their opinions is as long as your work is routed through another state and you're not practicing law in Florida, like you're not putting yourself as a Florida attorney type stuff, you're okay. But so to get around that, I actually have a virtual office that I pay for myself for when I had my own firm that is based out of Mobile. So if they have any questions, but because I also work for my practice is federal, it should be fine no matter what because my law firm is in Maine. I'm on their insurance. I'm like my phone. I actually have a desk phone. It's weird that they sent me that is got a Maine phone number. And my system's through Maine. So, and then I go in and through the federal stuff, and that's what we do.
Okay, very cool. So this interview is a little bit different just because I know you. I mean, like, it feels like it was 7 or maybe 8 years ago, but it kind of doesn't. Like, I feel like we could just still be in Louisiana. I know, right? So, but so now when we met at Southern, you were already a mama. You have 2 kids. You have a girl and a son. But you were not a part of the evening part-time program. You did it, full-time. Yes, what was that like?
It was rough. There was my first semester. I was actually not passing a little bit. They had to put me on the academic probation section, but that doesn't ever show up in my records. I still talk about it when I do my character and fitness stuff, just because I want to be out there. Because it was hard. Because at the beginning of the year, like my first semester, I was traveling back and forth to see the children. Because they were with my parents for the first semester. And I would go every month, a couple times a month. So I was just torn between 2 different places. After that, it was a lot better because they were a lot closer. Second, at the end of the first year, we all moved in together, and I went and did an internship up in Missouri, and then they moved back down to Louisiana with me. And it was rough. Like there was, I'd have to get them up, take them to school, get them into the after-school program, go to class. I think in our last year, I ended up having to take a night course just to get the credit in.
Secure transactions.
Yes. Oh, that was so terrible. I passed it, thankfully. Awful. But I ended up taking them to the campus with me in the evenings. They would sit there and do their homework, have a snack, and just hang out. And then we would go home. And they did that for the last handful of years. I was in Louisiana. And it was just another part of life. Like, I was like, all right, class, kids, school,
Yeah.
And it was just a circle. I didn't get to do a whole lot. Every now and then I would get to go out and be adult, but it was mostly just, feed the children, hang out home, make sure they were fed and clothed and not smothered under their toys, I guess.
Yeah. I appreciate you for sharing that because a lot of times people go to college and they go straight to law school and then, their stories are fairly simple. Our stories were not simple. I worked for 5 years before I went to school and I'm like, I gave up a job for this? What was I doing? Right. Your story was completely different, right? We either left jobs or money or family to then go to law school and we did expect something in return, right? In your case, you were like, I have to win. I don't care. But that is an interesting perspective that I wanted to make sure we talked about because everyone's benchmark for success is different, right? I would definitely say that you're successful, but like getting through law school with 2 small children is huge. Full-time law school too. So
Yeah, I do count that as one of my successes. I still kind of pinch myself. I'm like, did I actually pass? Are you sure I passed? Really? Like, they didn't just go, let's give her this diploma because she worked hard. I still pinch myself, but I'm like, did I really pass? Are you sure? But it is a big accomplishment. People tell me that. I'm like, all right. Great.
yeah.
Because we talk about, like, well, what made you go to law school? And I was like, well, I was going to do this, and I was going to do this. And then I was like, how about law school? Let's do that. Because I want a better paying career. And that's kind of where, I know it shouldn't all be money motivated, but I mean, at the end of the day, you have to have money to pay your bills.
Yeah. I mean, this is the honest episode. You said you kept taking the bar because you're stubborn. You're just telling us all the truth. You said, this is my office. I don't care. Judges see it. You see it. It's fine. If you are watching this episode, learning all about veteran affairs, thank you so much for watching the You Are a Lawyer podcast. If you're not watching, I want to let you know this podcast is available on YouTube. So head over to YouTube and search You Are a Lawyer podcast. You can watch this. And back to the episode with Stephanie Clark. We're talking all about working in veteran affairs. So, Stephanie, do you have any advice to law students or new lawyers, like 5 years practicing or less, about what they can do with their law degrees?
They can do all kinds of things, and I've learned actually quite a handful of different things from listening to your podcast, because there's things that I did not even think about. I was like, oh, that's genius, But no, you could do, HR is one of the big ones that people say you can do with a law degree. It was one of our law professors actually was like, well, Stephanie, you should go into HR.
I can see that.
Appreciate it. But you can go, I actually looked into becoming a law librarian because, lawyers are just spicy librarians. Kind of,
yeah.
We do the research and we nerd out like, oh, let's go find this decision. Any form of research, any kind of thing like that you can do. And it's just getting like most things, it's getting your foot in a door somewhere.
Yeah.
And the GS system, like I like to talk about, which is government, my dream job. Come on now. It's just getting there. And you gotta, like, if you can find someone that, if you like something and you can tailor what you do to it, you can do it. Like, you could be the CEO of Google if you want to. I don't know if that CEO would step down for you, but you could.
I mean, the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, is a lawyer.
Yeah.
Adam Silver, come be on the show. Like, you can do anything with a law degree.
You can, a law degree helps so many things because it changes your viewpoint. Because, in high school and college, you're like, don't use the word because in your writing. And now you use it because you have to.
You have to use it, yeah.
Yeah, like we actually had a thing at our NOVA conference, and it was, oh, you need to make sure you put the because in there. And I was like, it's it's one of those things that you don't think about it because in law school, you learn how to look at things differently. Once you're done with law school, you give that lawyer answer. Well, it depends. I need more information.
Mm-hmm.
And people hate that answer, but that is the actual answer. So that is it depends on what you want to do. If you want to go be a basketball coach, owner,
commissioner,
all
of it.
That guy, do that. My daughter's graduating. I'm sorry, she's graduating in May of 2023, and she's going to school for forensic psychology. So if she wanted to, she can go to law school after that and add that to her resume. My son, on the other hand, not so much.
Yeah.
See where he goes. But you can do anything. Like, it's just whatever your heart is leaning towards. Like, if you went to law school just to try to increase your income, there are jobs out there for it. If you went to law school to become a lawyer and say, I'm going to make all this money, I am sorry about your luck.
Yes.
A lot of the starter jobs, they're not there. They're not, the income isn't.
I hate that thing about, like, TV and movies show lawyers as just being these super wealthy people, and I'm like, where? This person is wearing a $6,000 suit. That's not happening right out of school. And then once you do, like, I worked at a firm for almost 5 years, you don't even have time to spend the money. You don't even have time. Like, at least when you worked for the SBA, they told you it was a minimum 10-hour days. They don't even tell you that at law firms. You just do the work so that people can see you working to become partner or have the time to spend the money. Like, it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah. It is, because you're sitting there, you do all these things, and you're like, oh, I'm going to make this money. And then you we were in class one time, and there's a couple people, I'm not going to name names, they were sitting there with the rule in Louisiana. They were trying to look at making mandatory, like, public defender type jobs for people coming out of law school. And like, oh, the pay will be like $35,000 a year. And these couple people were like, how do you live on this? I was like, I live on half of that right now, so
yeah,
it's
you probably could in Louisiana. Yeah,
you can't really anywhere else, but in Louisiana, it would be tough and tight, but it's only for a little while, you know. Yeah. And that's law firms, like you said, the main law firms. You are working those 60, 80-hour weeks to make that giant paycheck, you know. And that's one of the things I've talked to some of my coworkers about, and previously is another reason I wanted to be a lawyer was because or an attorney, or I wanted to be in this role was because I wanted the autonomy. I wanted to be able to kind of do my own thing, because I have proven myself that I can work. I don't need to have someone going, is she clocked in?
Right. Yeah.
And like, trust me to do my work, and let me. I don't have to. Can I go to a doctor's appointment? Because
I promise I won't spend 2 hours away doing whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I wanted the autonomy. I wanted the freedom. And at some of the firms you get that, and some of the firms you don't. Like, the firm I have now is kind of like that. We have a little bit here and there. They tell us we should do these things, and I'm like, nah.
Should I?
No. I'm just taking a lunch right now. That's it.
Yeah.
But
so one more question to piggyback off what you said about being the HR manager. Have you managed people before in any of your other roles?
Not officially, but yes. I have not had the title of HR. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about, you were a paralegal for so long, and a lot of times the paralegals are the ones that are sought after because they have all the knowledge from being there and working in all the different cases. Yeah.
Yeah. I would have the, attorneys come to me, Stephanie, I need you to do this, and hey, can you go, have the staff come, can you do this because the bosses like you, I guess. Yeah. But the bosses like me because I do the work. And so you get the autonomy, and I had earned that. Let's get this. I would show up early, stay late, not get overtime. Yeah. And I do the same thing now. Is I work a little bit outside the clock because it needs to be done, but I'm not doing it every day. Yeah. So that I can handle. But yeah, I've managed people here and there. I can, and I'm decent at it if I want to. But it's kind of a roundabout.
Just wondering. Yeah. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's always fun to talk to another Southern University Law Center graduate. So happy that we can still connect. I can't believe it's been since 2015.
I know. And because you have a toddler now. I have a graduated senior.
You have adults.
I have adults. She's voting.
I know. Well, thank you so much, and I will talk to you later.
Bye. Thank you.